Welcome to the April 2024 Branch Development Committee Peer Group Meeting. We're excited to hear you here tonight. Peer Group meetings are a monthly program for branch leaders, including presidents, president-elect, program chairs, membership chairs, nominating committee, and anyone else in your branch that you think would be useful to be here. I'm Sigrid Morans, AUW California Director for Leadership Development. The other branch development leadership team members are Marcia Swales, AUW California Director for Membership, and Sharon Siebert, AUW California Director for Branch Support. And also this evening we have Peggy Shippen, Leadership Development Committee member, who's responsible for finding and engaging our speaker, Barry Altman. And thank you, Peggy. And also we are pleased to have some celebrities with us tonight. We have Dawn Johnson, who is our AUW California Director for Communications and All Things Creative. We also have Sandy Gabe, AUW California President, and Charmin Goring-Fox, who is AUW California President-elect and will be taking over in July. So welcome, everybody. But first, we have a couple of announcements. Yesterday, everybody should have received an email from AUW National. And in that email is a unique link to vote in the AUW National election. There's two parts to it. There's a selection for board of director members. And as Sharon pointed out to me, 3 of the 4 people who are running are all from California. So that's great. And the second part is the question on open enrollment. So hopefully you will find that email. If it isn't in your inbox, check your spam and vote on this referendum on eliminating our degree requirement for membership. The last time we voted on this issue, the turnout was less than 20% of our total membership. So we need everybody to vote so we get to a quorum. So please be sure to vote, and the voting closes May 15th. If you need more information on Open Up AUW, go to our website, which Sharon is going to put into the chat. Okay. Tonight, I'd also like to introduce Susan Bongasser. Hi, Susan. She is the newest member of our branch development committee. She's a member of the Redlands branch, and she's joined us to lead the College University Partner Program. So Susan, please tell us about yourself and your new role.
Okay, I am happy to serve in this new role. I'm the co-chair of the College University Partnership Program at the Redlands branch, and I'm a retired community college faculty and dean, so I'm close to students. I support advocacy for students, and therefore I'm very passionate about the role. I would like to see our College University Partnership Program for the state of California have a little, will grow and reach out to partnership institutions or develop new partners with local institutions, but also help provide support so we can encourage the partnership institutions to join us with AUW and to encourage the students to become engaged with AAUW's initiatives. So I'm happy to meet all of you and look forward to working with all of you in the future.
And Susan is going to have a new peer group, which her first meeting will be May 9th, and you'll all get invitations to that. But if you have someone in your branch who is the college university liaison, be sure to pass that information along to them. And also look in the B2B, which is coming out this week, and there'll be an announcement in there and a link for registering for that meeting. Okay. Also, Nick Whistle, which is our college student government program. If you are sponsoring some college women to attend Nick Whistle, be sure they are registered. This is a wonderful opportunity for college women. It runs May 30th through June 1st at the University of Maryland. And if you go to our CU webpage for more information on that, the early bird registration where you get a slight discount on the price ends April
I've made
14th.
coffee, David.
And whoops, somebody needs to mute. And the regular registration ends May 15th. So be sure to get your people registered for that. And Sharon will put the registration information on Nick Whistle into the chat. As this will be interactive, we want to hear from all the attendees. So be sure to familiarize yourself with the reaction button at the bottom of your screen or wherever the bar with all of the little icons are. And if you won't be muted, so you can certainly speak out, but if you want to raise your hand to be noticed, you just go to the reactions and you'll see a little raise your hand and you can raise your hand. And then you'll see a little lower your hand and you lower your hand. So that way we're sure not to miss you. This session is being recorded and it'll be available in a few days on the AUW California website. And we have topics scheduled through May. There are no plans to hold meetings over the summer, but we will resume in September. So I wanted to introduce Peggy Shippen right now. And Peggy, you want to introduce yourself and Barry, and we'll start from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sigrid. Yes, I'm Peggy Shippen, and I'm a member of the Leadership Development Committee, also a member of the Palm Springs branch, and dual member with AAUW Salem branch in Oregon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 2024 Branch Development Peer Group meeting. Thank you for coming and to hear our guest speaker and facilitator, Barry Atland, discussing the second of a three-part series that we have entitled Touching the Heart of Our Volunteers. In the second session, our guest facilitator, Barry Atland, will lead us in an interactive discussion focusing on how to put volunteers first in your plans to engage, equip, guide, and support those who serve and support the mission of AAUW through their volunteer efforts. Barry is the author of the acclaimed title, Engaging the Head, Heart, and Hands of a Volunteer. Barry has experience as a volunteer and executive leader in a variety of nonprofit organizations and has applied his unique experience to craft leadership guidance for all phases of the volunteer engagement circle. And that includes attraction, discovery, engagement, sustainment, and redirection. We hope you can join your peers for an immersive learning conversation of ideas and successes. Welcome, Barry.
What an honor it is to be with all of you again. So again, hello to all of you. I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida. So it is 10 o'clock on the East Coast right now. But I'm not concerned at all because I actually am meeting with the men of Berkeley at 1 a.m. this evening, East Coast time. So I still have a few more hours ahead of me here in the home office, but it is an honor to be with all of you. I will tell you that in just a few minutes, we are going to dive into breakout rooms. You'll get your choice on which of these three questions you'll be able to explore. I'll talk more about them in just a bit, so you need not try to soak in these three questions and make that choice right now, but just be aware that we will be breaking into three different breakout groups and you get to choose which one you will go to based upon which of these three questions you would like to explore. If you recall, and for those of you, and just give me a wave of your hand if you were in the first session a few short weeks ago. All right, I see a number of you waving. Fantastic. Welcome back. Let's do a quick review because what you may recall is we spoke conceptually in the first session. And what we would like to do for this second session is let's turn the corner a bit and let's speak a little bit less conceptually and let's think about skills. Let's think about the actual choices and the actions that we take as leaders, titled or informal leaders in our branches, and the things that we need to do to create this culture of engagement within your branch. So who can recall what are the two types of motivation that we discussed a few short weeks ago? Who'd like to share? Ruth, I see your hand first. So Ruth, go ahead.
Intrinsic and extrinsic.
All right. Well, Ruth, those are the words, and that's fantastic. Maybe take a run at explaining your understanding of the difference between those two.
So intrinsic is where you really have an innate desire to do good or to do something, to volunteer and do your best. Extrinsic is where you're trying to receive something, but or to get something back in return. That's really outside of your. It's just something that you may expect, but it doesn't mean you're going to get it. So.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. And if you allow me, Ruth, to just build on that, here's the way that I phrase it, and it seems to be pretty easy for people to latch onto, is I think of extrinsic because your definition of intrinsic motivation is right on target. Extrinsic motivation, I'll build on your definition and say that it's typically an effort that's made by somebody else, somebody external of us, to try to get us to do what they want us to do. And typically in a volunteer supported organization, we clearly embrace that intrinsic motivation is the more powerful of the two. It certainly is the more influential in getting others to perform at their best. And here is the secret. Here is what we're really trying to achieve within each and every one of your groups, is that you want to bring the intrinsic motivation of every one of your members forward, and to do so at every phase in the volunteer engagement life cycle. That's the key. And it's really easy for me to say that, and it's really difficult for you to actually make it happen. But it is possible. It is possible. So we're going to talk a bit about what it means to really be a culture shifter within your branch. And what are some things that we can do, that we can start implementing now and encouraging others to implement, to be able to see and realize this shift that we desire to see for our future. So again, those 5 phases of the volunteer engagement life cycle, they begin with attraction, followed with discovery, finding out what's in the heart of a volunteer, and then we get them lined up with doing something that brings meaning to them. That's the engagement piece. After we've done that, we want to sustain that for as long as possible, and we recognize that at some point, whether that's 3 weeks or 30 years later, that at some point there will be a moment of redirection. And we would want that to be voluntary and on the best of terms when somebody says, you know, my time is done. I've done good work here, and it's time for me to make space for somebody else to step in and serve. And those would all be good things that we would celebrate. So that's what we're going to focus on. And that's the when. I'd like to talk about the why as well, because we did mention this a few weeks ago, that the nature of paid work and the nature of volunteer work, it's just different. And we must treat it differently, because perfectly normal in the transactional space of paid work that we would put organizational needs first. But in volunteer supported organizations, I advocate for putting the needs of the individual first. And that may seem antithetical to what you may believe or what you have been guided to believe throughout your experiences. But my experience tells me, and it's really the basis for all of my writing, is when we choose to do that, when we put those individual needs first, and then we just get out of the way and let that volunteer do their best work, because it brings meaning and fulfillment to them, that who wins? Our branches, our organizations, our groups. That's really who wins. And ultimately, it's the mission of those organizations that wins when we see those sustainable long-term outcomes, when we put those individual needs first. Because this slide says to me, hey, you may be slightly skeptical of this belief system, this notion, because you probably have already been getting results by not necessarily following this at every phase of that life cycle. I suggest that those are often short-term results, but those sustainable outcomes, that's really what we're shooting for here. And I believe that we can get there by placing the heart of our volunteers first. So this is where we're going to dive into our small group breakouts. The first one is going to be the question of from where specifically have you attracted prospective new members and your future branch leaders? And what you're going to discuss in there is, when you're out in your community, head on a swivel, where are you meeting people that you could potentially attract to become part of your branch? The second conversation is going to be, what specific steps do you take to close the deal? And I don't love the sales language, but I'm using it specifically in this case. What specific steps do you take to close the deal to engage potential new members and future branch leaders? How do you hook them? How do you go from, I might be interested, to, yeah, I think I definitely, this is something that's part of my future? And then that third group is going to be, what specifically do you do to engage your newest members and future members in the work of your branch? So after they've already made the decision to get a bit more involved, now what do you do to get them more deeply engaged in the work? So they're not just a lurker, they're not just coming to hang out, but they're actually engaged in the work. And at this time, let's have you choose one of the three breakout options. So please choose. Each group will have it. The question is going with an individual. Make sure that you have a note taker and also a designated spokesperson. And go. Choose one of your groups. Well, for those who are viewing the recording right now, just a quick note. All of our participants are in one of three selected breakout rooms. They're exploring questions, and then for the next 20 to 30 minutes at least, we're going to be hearing what they discussed in those small groups, give them a chance to share their insights. We'll do a debrief, and we'll build upon whatever has been shared in those three discussion groups. And hopefully we'll take this conversation to a really good place. Welcome back, everybody. And just as an FYI,
I have no idea.
FYI, yeah, when you do return, you were off mute. And if you want to place yourself back on mute, especially if you have ambient noise, now's a good time to do so. But I do hope that you will all choose at some point to once again take yourself off of mute, because I would love to hear many, many voices as we share our debrief of our three breakout groups and those conversation starter questions. So let's go to the first of our three. And that question was on that initial phase of the volunteer engagement life cycle, which we call attraction. And I am, in my writing, I'm specific about not using the word recruitment, because I do come from a human resources background. I was a reluctant HR professional for a number of years in my corporate life. And we could talk at a different time about why I was reluctant, because I was on the learning and OD side, which for me is the important and the fun side of HR. But all that time, I always felt like recruitment had a very transactional feel to it. So in my writing, I shifted instead, and I talked about attraction. I'd love to hear from the group who was in that first of the three breakout rooms. Who would like to share the highlights of your conversation On the question of, okay, so where specifically have you or are you attracting prospective new members and your future branch leaders? Who would like to share?
I took notes.
Don.
The San Francisco branch sends about 15 girls to Tech Trek. So they do a lot of follow-up with the Tech Trek parents, and the parents are impressed with AUW. So they often ask the parents to do follow-up activities. They call it T-Tag, Tech Trek Tag, I guess, with the Tech Trek alumni. And they do things with the girls afterwards. Take the girls, for example, to the California Academy of Science. And I like that idea because I think we often do things for the Tech Trek girls during Tech Trek. And I think many of us may have a follow-up ice cream social or something afterwards, but then we never see or hear from them again. So the idea of a follow-up with the girls and their parents it sounds promising to me. The only problem what was mentioned, I'm sure it's not the only problem, but these are younger parents with, they're involved with their girls' general activities, and they may be working mothers or parents, and they don't always have a lot of time to join or volunteer.
Sandra, I'm curious. A question comes to mind, and I would love to learn from all of you. Is the contact information from those parents of the young ladies who were engaged in the activities, is the contact information for those people readily available, or is it something that we gather as branch leaders?
Well, I'm sure like with the Hayward Castro Valley branch, we have a committee that right now is in the process of choosing the girls. So they do have that contact information. What's done, I'm not on that committee, so I'm not quite sure. I'd like to add one more thing. Someone from the North Tahoe branch spoke, and she said it was a big anniversary for that branch, and they had an open house that they invited general public to celebrate their 40th anniversary. So I think having some event and inviting the community at large is a good idea. If nothing else, for visibility.
Yeah, a great way to begin our conversation. Who else from that first group, or really from anybody, would like to add additional insight on this question? Where specifically have you been attracting your prospective new members? Who else can add more? Priscilla, go ahead.
We're having one of the AUW Fund recipients come and speak at our next meeting at a luncheon, and so we're hoping to attract some more members from that. Some of those speakers are amazing.
All right. And Peggy, I see your hand. Jump in there.
Yes, and one of the Salem branch in Oregon, they've also been having gatherings, and they've been reaching out more to the university, Willamette University, which is close by, and also the community college to invite them to share and learn about AAUW and come in as we kind of pair up, I guess is the way you see it. Where we'll meet one and then one of our members will bring them in and kind of spend the time with them. So
fantastic. Tina, add to the thoughts.
Yes, we attend lots of science fairs. We have an innovation science fair at the fairgrounds next week. We'll be attracting about 1,000 parents, bringing their children. And so we have an easy science little table, and we get signups from parents interested in our organization. We also put on science fairs or science workshops, 4th and 5th grade girls. And we also have parents signed up there.
Where are you located?
Pleasanton,
Oh, okay.
Livermore. But
Right.
the Innovation Science Fair next week of at least 1,000 kids coming through, about maybe 2,000 parents. And it's been a good sign up for us.
Again, hearing lots of great ideas. As you may recall, I did share that I actually work for my collegiate fraternal organization, and I've been blown away as I'm revisiting this experience from a couple years back in my life. We have done a fantastic job of systematizing growth in an organization, and it comes down to a really simple process. And we call it a names list, but I like to personally call it a friends list because I believe in developing relationships first and really getting to know that person and finding out what stirs in their heart. But I'm curious if, as we're meeting these individuals who may become prospective members, are we tracking their contact information in a central place? I'm curious if any of our groups are doing something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing some nodding heads. Who would like to share the practice?
Okay. I can say that as far as the Tech Trek and T-Tag is concerned, we have contact with the parents because, once people join Tech Trek, then you're automatically going through the parents. These are minors who are attending our camp. So we have the information for the parents, and so we do and so we invite them, and we keep track of that, So we have the contacts for those students and parents, and also when they attend our sort of send off or welcome back events, then we have a sign up table and ask them whether they would like to become a member. And we do, and then we follow up with them, and we do get some, some new members that way.
Fantastic. Yeah. When I say systematize, the way that often looks, and it's a clever little use of technology, it's a simple Google document that is accessible by every member, every active member. In this case, it would be every member of your branch. And it's not only providing the names and the contact information, but then there's another column or two that would add who was the last person who contacted this individual and what is their level of potential interest. Maybe there's a red, yellow, green method. Maybe there's a numbering system where a 1 would be, they didn't show that much interest, or an 8 or a 9 might be, wow, they seem like they're really interested. So there are ways to systematize the way that you attract others. And Dawn, I see your hand. What else would you add? Dawn, go ahead. We're not able to hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We a couple of years ago, our relatively small branch developed a sort of a member ambassadorship program where we asked all of our members to be ambassadors for attracting new members. And so we held a session as a group, and we hammered out an elevator speech that everybody was comfortable with and played around with practicing it and so on. And we also gave all of them little packets of business cards and handouts that they could leave. And we just sort of promoted the idea with them that they're ambassadors for recruiting, attracting membership as well. And it's not the job of your membership director, it's the job of every member in the organization. But they need to be a little bit equipped. So we think that the mission building, the elevator speech building activity was really helpful in that regard.
Yeah, and Dawn, again, I'm not countering your suggestion. I'm only adding to your suggestion. And I actually created this model that you see on your screen here based upon a methodology that's quite similar to what you just described. And I think we touched on this a few weeks ago, but we are going to emphasize it because I do believe that the elevator speech can be impactful for some, but elevator speeches are still us as current members talking to that prospective member, maybe even talking at them for that brief period of time. Whereas I love to just think about how can we flip that conversation around and instead ask them some questions, some meaningful questions. And we're going to go there in that direction in just a moment. But you're going to see the first three steps in this model are really just about demonstrating your leadership presence. And I don't mean from a titling perspective. I mean exactly what Dawn just said, is everybody is an ambassador for the organization. Everybody shares in the responsibility for the growth of your branch. It is not just the member chair or whatever that role is. I used to struggle with this in a faith environment, is that you have the welcome committee or the hospitality committee, which often would mean that everybody else would say, I'm glad that they're taking care of that, because now I don't have to go out of my way to be friendly and kind and welcoming to others. I can just kind of do my own thing. Whereas I said, no, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. And it's true for every organization that we all share in that responsibility. So that's what I mean by seeking and demonstrating leadership presence, is always having your head on a swivel, always looking for potential new members. And then when you get a chance to touch, to be able to interact with others, to just strike up a conversation, say hello, I offer a friendly greeting and a smile and eye contact, and you never know. You never know where those conversations might go, because as you tune in more closely, that third plank of this model, that's where you may be able to determine that there's potential interest in future involvement. And that leads us to our second group. But Dawn, I definitely love that idea, that concept of ambassadorship. And when you can embed that into your branch, you'll be making significant strides toward building that deeper culture of engagement. You're going to see growth when you get everybody to really embrace that it is our shared responsibility.
Well, and I can really see the value of flipping the elevator speech. I totally understand what you're saying with that. I generally use the slogan, ask not what you can do for AAUW, ask what AAUW can do for you. It's kind of one of my slogans as well. But I think our members were stumbling and with how to describe the organization, and it gave them a little structure, but it needed to go a little further, so I appreciate that addition.
Well, let's see what our second group comes up with as they explore this question. Before we go there, Lorraine, I want to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts. Go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you doing conversation number two?
Well, I had a comment on conversation number one.
Oh, please share. Go ahead.
Okay. I noticed you talked a lot about Tech Track and people involved in that, or open houses, but from what I just joined AAUW a couple of years ago. I had been a docent at a museum for a long time. And when I no longer was doing that, one of my docent friends said, I belong to AAUW. It's in our neighborhood. Would you like to come to a meeting? And so that is what got me involved. And I think that's one way that we get people. And from what I've seen in the couple of years I've been there, that's how we get new people. Friends bring their friends. All right. But then I don't feel like we have a good enough program yet. I'm going to be membership chair this coming year to really get to know the people who are joining, because when we have our meetings, we have presentations that are wonderful by community people, and that's great, but it means we don't get to know each other as well. So I think we need more programs where we get to know our own members enough. I joined some things, but not everybody does, or they might want to join to go to lunch, or they might want to join to play bridge, but they're really not engaging in the real mission of AAUW. They're finding a social group there. So I don't think we have a lot of hope of attracting people who are working, people who are just out of college, who have other priorities. I think reaching out to friends is probably the best method of getting new members.
Yeah, certainly. And you touched on something, and here's what I believe. I wouldn't rule any individual out based upon where they are in their life, because I believe that everybody has a heart for something. Everybody, even if they have very limited bandwidth in their life, they do have a sense of care for something, and maybe it is the mission of AAUW. You did touch on something, and I have ruffled a few feathers over the last 10 to 15 years of my professional life as I get asked to come to a lot of organizations. And I even had this conversation today because I'm going to Sarasota, Florida in 2 weeks. And I have a lunch and learn that I'm going to be facilitating. And here's what I've told the group is that I believe that real connection within an organization, professional association, a branch just like yours, the real connection happens not during the designated networking time, if that is part of your agenda, but if you have facilitated learning. I know you mentioned a guest speaker coming in. If they are just doing a presentation and it's not interactive, then it's really difficult to be able to build relationship in those moments. I'm a facilitator by nature. I love to come in and create interaction and immersion in the space. And I get to watch people build relationship with each other while they're learning, not sitting silently and listening to an individual. So as we talk about culture shifting for your branches, maybe that's something that you could consider. If you're bringing in guest speakers, maybe it is part of the shift to be able to create a more interactive environment during those times, because it's in those moments that you really get to know the other people within your own branch. And Tina, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am opposed to just bringing in friends. And the reason is that our membership in AUW is very white. It's very older, and we're not going to survive if we bring in our friends. So I'm out there to attract a diverse membership. Those may not be the people that I interact with every day, but those are the people that are the future of my branch. And so all my new members are younger. They're a very diverse group. And I think I'm changing the membership of this branch from white older women to the diversity of our community. I just want to put that out because I think we need to reach out.
It's true.
I am very, very involved in Girl Scouts. I'm on the board for Girl Scouts in Northern California. And as an organization, we are not going to survive unless we bring in the Hispanic, the Muslim, the Asian communities. And so this is something I'm super involved in, and I'm bringing it on to AAUW.
And all I would add, Tina, is that maybe, just maybe, your strategy, and I don't mean yours specifically, but I'm speaking to the entire group as I say this, maybe it's not an either or, but it's an and. You know, we can
definitely need to be part of it.
Yes, yeah, we can invite our friends, and we can always have our head on a swivel in our community, and we're reaching out to people who are not in our immediate social circle, but maybe somebody who can lend a different viewpoint, a different look, you know, because I believe that diversity has many different looks and feels to it that go beyond what we see when we first look at another person. But, you know, in fact, I love to celebrate diversity of thought. And that's also quite healthy for an organization. So I love what you're sharing. And I would embrace or encourage all of you to embrace that it's not an either or an or, but it's an and. All of these strategies can be highly impactful for your branches. And Peggy, let's go ahead, share your thought, and then we need to press on to our second group.
Okay, just very quickly, one of our past presidents, she did what they call a little circle of engagement during a fundraiser. And it was taking some topics, bringing the group into small groups to have discussions, and they were a little controversial, and to generate. And that is a piece they did just she just did it differently, and then they went on for their fundraiser. So she incorporated this little circle of engagement, and it was fabulous. We all got to know each other so much more, and people were inspired to give. It was interesting.
Yeah, Peggy, again, it is befuddling to me why we bring brilliant people into the same room together and then we sit them in rows and expect them to stare at the back of the person's head in front of them. It never quite made sense to me. And I know I'm probably stepping on some toes as I say that out loud, but it's a truth. It's a truth that we have to embrace. Peggy, what you just said, a circle of engagement. What beautiful words those are. And when we create more of that environment, that's when we really build relationship. And dare I say, if somebody new is in the room, it's how they're going to feel most welcome because their voice is being shared, their voice is being heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good stuff. How about our second conversation group? Who'd like to share the highlights of our question on discovery? How are you closing the deal? How are you getting that person to turn from potential interest to actually coming to a branch meeting and getting a bit more involved? Who'd like to share?
Okay. Well, I took the notes for group number 2, and some of our responses overlap with question number 1. So hopefully we can talk about closing the deal. But one member of our group talked about the fact that their branch lost a lot of members and they were trying to grow. And in addition to Tech Trek, which is important to the branch, they have some social activities like bingo. Another member talked about their branch having a contest to bring in new members, and it seemed to work because they got 22 new members. Another member talked about attending a district-wide Make a Difference Day for nonprofit groups where 1,000 people attended, and about 50 people expressed an interest in AUW, not that they were joining. So the question was, now how do you get them to actually join AUW? And someone suggested that instead of having a meeting for the 50 people to show up, or whoever of those 50 show up, have a Zoom call on the weekend or evening and talk about the programs and what the branch does. Because if they're working, it might be easier just to have them, meet via Zoom. And then after that, do the personal touch and have someone from the branch call them. So start out with the Zoom meeting. I talked about our branch where we have, we invite members to bring potential new members to a specific meeting where their brunch is paid for. And at that meeting, we address AUW, the mission, but also all the activities, because many people join AUW are interested in the mission, but the social activities allow them to meet other members and feel more part of the group. Also, with new members, there are social events at someone's house where we have a mentor for the new members. So the mentor tries to reach out, phone, email, meet in person to address questions and make them comfortable with the organization. At least they know somebody. When they come to meetings, the new members wear a little sticker on their name tag as a new member, and we try to make them comfortable so the mentor will meet them, sit with them, talk to them, and make them feel part of the group. So there are different approaches, reaching out and trying to entice them with the mission as well as social activities and make them feel comfortable. And anybody in my group, if I left something out, please jump right in.
You did great. Thank you.
Susan, thank you for sharing that. If you'll allow me to just add a thought, because the one thing that I've not heard, and it doesn't mean that it's not present, but what I've not heard, in other words, it's not getting the airtime even in our learning session right now, is how do we find out what the intrinsic drivers are of that potential new member? How do we find out what's going on in here? An elevator speech is less likely to uncover that. What we want to do is ask the meaningful questions. And I know that we touched on this a little bit in our first session, but I'd love to just hear, for those of you who have found yourself in that moment where you can flip that conversation around and you can begin to ask for that other person, what's happening in their heart? What do they care about? What's important to them? Who would like to share, either a recommendation or a question or a moment where they felt like they really connected with somebody because they did flip the conversation around? And I see Sharon. Go ahead, Sharon.
So I think that we're missing the point exactly as you said. Every new member in my branch is personally contacted by our membership team, and they're asked, why did they join AAUW? What the WIFM, what's in it for them? And we also do a new member orientation where we talk about the plethora of things that we do and ask them what their interests are. The membership ambassador idea, which has been rolled out by our membership people this year, is especially important. And so we make sure that every new member is introduced and every new member has a mini bio in our newsletter, being careful to be private about it, and making sure that everybody is comfortable getting to a meeting, having someone carpool with them, etc. But especially having the personal touch, not doing this is what's available to you in a total picture, but by one-to-one conversation.
Sharon, I think you're onto something there. And as easy as it sounds for us to acknowledge that, oh yeah, we got to have an actual meaningful, thoughtful conversation where we're asking intentional questions and we're trying to find out what's going on in here. Here's the key, and let's just cut through all of this. In order for you to realize change within any of your branches, you'll need to get many of your members to begin instilling these practices and to just build it into the way that they engage in their membership experience. When you can begin to shift more individuals to having those types of conversations. So it's not just one designated person, but it's something that we begin to do on a natural level where we're just saying, hey, so I noticed that I've never met you before and you're new here. I'm curious, what brings you here? And yeah, Bev, I see your hand. Build on that thought because I see you nodding your head as well.
Yeah, one of the jobs that I have loved in this whole organization is membership chair. I've held it in different branches, and I've been in the biz now since about 1984, being a member of AAUW. But I love being membership, even though I'm president now of one. But I got to tell you, one of the things, especially with California Online, I see Gail is here. One of the things that we did was actually with the person's permission, if they're new, they had a choice. Do you want an article like a bio Sharon talked about? Or would you mind if we did a video of you and put it on our branch membership channel so we can share it? And in an interview, you've got to be careful about your questions. Look at those questions. What is your why? That can come through on that video interview. What interests you? What are some of the, you get to see another aspect of the person. And these were only about 5 to 8 minutes, no more than 10 at the most. Depends. I had one that was really long-winded, so that person went on a bit. But then you have that link, and it's only by, and you make sure, like on YouTube, that it's closed captioned. But the other part is making sure that only a person with the link can get to it. Again, this is all done with their permission. It's not open to the world. So when you do that, and then you put in the newsletter, hey, we have our new member, Gail Swain, just joined, and here's some information. And if you want to find, here's her email, get in touch with her, and here's her video. And we found so many of our members, and we have, I think, over 100, right, Gail? Maybe 110 by now. They would contact these particular people. So there was a connection because it's an only online kind of membership. So we had to look at it a little differently than face-to-face.
Well, Bev, and I'm going to ask you a straightforward question because you mentioned your pride in being in that membership chair role. think back to that experience and as you were an influencer within the culture of your branch, I'm curious, did you take the lead on growing your membership, or did you take the lead on helping everybody in the branch to recognize that it's their responsibility to help grow the membership?
Yeah, it was like you can't be one person. It's a shared kind of ownership. And we did kind of what Dawn mentioned. We went through the elevator speech. I'm a Toastmaster, okay? So hello, elevator speeches are what we do in Toastmasters organization. So that was an easy fix for me. But then it was like, okay, guys, come on. What's going on? It is shared. It's not Bev and it's not Bev's show. It's all of us.
Yeah, and for me, especially for all of you as influencers, as leaders in the informal sense, as well as the formal sense for many of you with titles, that's what we need to do. That's how we begin to really shift the culture within your branch, is by helping others to recognize that we all share in that responsibility. So Bev, how do you get there? How do we do that? How do we go from, and maybe some branches are struggling with this, how do they go from the one person membership drive to getting everybody to embrace it?
Whoa, that's a hard one.
It is.
The group I'm dealing with right now, they were almost to the point of disbanding. And and they've been in the business for 101 years as an organization. So it's really been tough, but it has been a matter of slowly seeing exactly what you're saying. What are their strengths? And the strengths are, what do you guys, I'm in it for the social. Okay, fine, we can do social. But what's our mission? And trying to tie it in like that, it's been hard. And surveys were helpful, but with the survey, it had to be very careful that we're asking, what do you need? What are you interested in? And that was one of the things that we did for California Online, and also for the one I'm in is Glendale right now. So that's important, but then you've got to have follow-up, and that's the big thing. Follow-up, 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 and then more follow-up. Just to see, and I would hope that online is going to do it to say, okay, how have we done this year? Did somebody follow up with you? We want to make sure your needs are being met, because it's not about us. It's about our group.
Yeah, and I, as much as I love surveys, and I think that all data is inherently good, at the same time, we want to be very careful. We want to safeguard ourselves from the belief that collecting and aggregating data will take the place of meaningful one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah, and Peggy, go ahead, and then we're going to press forward.
I was one of the branches the two branches I actually belong to in Salem and Palm Springs. They have designed this wonderful form so that you ask these types of questions when they fill out their membership application. Yeah. However, now that I have had my awareness increased, I can see that although that's a good start, it would be really nice if we would all ask these new members those same types of questions in a one-on-one environment. And so while I think that like you said, the paperwork is cool and it's very nice to get it down, because then somebody has a place to start. It really does need, like Bev says, the follow-up of a one-on-one conversation that is in that same vein. And I think that that's where both of the branches that I belong to could enrich themselves by just taking that and start it as a start.
Yeah, I know that our time is flying by, so let's make sure we leave enough room for a third question, and we'll hit it quickly, and we'll probably leave a few things on the table that we can then share together and explore more deeply in our third session. Who is our spokesperson for our group? Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay, several people have stolen some of our ideas, but that's just good. We came up with 11 separate things. I'm just going to read you the list. what you need a survey or questionnaire on why they joined, what they're interested in. Email does not work. It has to be personal. And in that, we sometimes invite a new member to lunch or coffee and start the personal engagement. And okay. We have to contact them. Don't wait for them to show up. Offer transportation, offer what do you need, you know? Some branches have new member meetings all the time. Usually it helps if there's food and wine involved. But again, someone comes and talks about what AAUW is, what the branch has done in the past, because some of our branches have been around for a long time and have done some pretty amazing things. And it helps them to be proud of being a part of such an organization. Some branches have a community breakfast or coffees in areas, so that if you join, then you can learn who lives in your area if you want transportation or to hang out, or it's just good information. Share a list of projects that we do, because are you interested in whatever? Don't ever ask a new member to head a committee or have a board job. Ask her to be on a committee to learn what's going on. And one of my branches asks new members, just come to the board meeting. We promise we won't ask you to do anything. And of course, the ambassador, which is a lovely idea. This is part of everybody's job. So that was pretty much what we came up with.
Carol, great stuff, really great insights. And in fact, as you mentioned about engaging people on a committee, I've actually been doing this with the men's groups that I work with, and getting them to map their organizational structure and realizing that they don't actually have a visual representation of how their organization is designed. So introducing them to this idea of mapping their organizational structure, calling out every committee opportunity, because those are your plug-in points. Those are your opportunities to be able to invite your newest members into the work of your branch. And I'm a firm believer that if you really want people to be engaged, that's how we do it, is we get them involved in the work of the branch, and we do it in a way, not where the branch needs the most help, but where that individual feels called to serve. And if we can make their work aligned with something that's meaningful to them, that's when the real magic begins to happen. So again, I like to think of our organizations. In fact, I've been introducing this idea of a circular organizational map. Not your traditional hierarchy, maybe flipped upside down, but certainly a circular way, and recognizing that the titled leader may be in the center, but everybody radiates outward from there, and we all have a purpose within the organization. For me, I do believe that that's the key to engagement as well, and I know that our time is short, so I just wanted to introduce these concepts as well, because I believe that every voice matters. And we need to get to a level where every person who is engaged feels that their voice matters. And Sigrid and others, I would love to invite you in, because I know in our earlier conversations, we were talking about interbranch councils, or we're talking about reflection groups. And I'd love for you to just share a bit about what do those words mean, and what does that look like?
Okay. Well, most of your branches are part of an interbranch council. And there's a lot of leverage to be had by working with those other branches in your regional area. And it could be a district, some areas are districts, most are in interbranch councils, because we often suffer from a critical mass, whether it's attendance at an event or leadership roles, or just the bandwidth to do things. So I would strongly recommend that you spend a lot more time working with your interbranch councils to leverage different activities, and also to understand demographics. I'm in Orange County, and there's a huge difference in demographics amongst the branches. And we could certainly use the help for branches that serve lesser served communities to help us understand how to go after that demographic for membership and inclusion. And we're always working on our DEI position, our diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is one wonderful way to do it, especially if you have a big variety of different kinds of demographics across these inter-branch councils.
And those councils can serve as reflection groups, and they can engage in feedback loops. They can engage in what is called after action reviews if you have any exposure to project management from your professional experience. I think that we need to go beyond safe spaces. And I've recently been introduced to this concept of brave spaces. I feel like we've created it here, and you've allowed me to come in and gently poke and offer some suggestions that may be different than what has been practiced in the past. But I do believe that the things that we've been discussing and some of the model practices that have been shared, this is the pathway to future engagement for your branches, because I don't believe that humanity is changing, but I do believe that the landscape has changed. It had already been changing prior to the pandemic, and then COVID accelerated a lot of the shifts that we have begun seeing. Candidly, I'm grateful for it, because I had been waiting for organizations and leadership to begin to realize something that is a little bit different, where we really care about the heart of the individual. We don't expect people to do things just out of a sense of duty, but maybe as organizations, we care about what's actually going on in their heart, and we seek to serve them and fulfill their needs, because that's the hook. That's the hook. That's what gets every individual. I bet for every one of you, if I had the time to sit and ask, what's your why? That we would have some really meaningful conversations, and you would share what has hooked you for as long as you've chosen to serve. So with all of that in mind, again, I just reminding you that, we all tend to support something that we've been a part of creating, and we're not really culture creators anymore, because all of your branches exist. We're culture shifters. We're culture shifters, and that's where the emphasis needs to be. And I look forward to spending more time together in our third session. So with that, Sigrid, I'll give it back to you. We've probably even gone a little bit beyond our time, but I'm so grateful for the level of engagement that we've had this evening.
Thank you, Barry. This has been wonderful. As you all know, we recorded this, and we'll distribute the link to where the recordings can be seen. I've already been contacted by one branch president who's planning to use at least session 1 as part of her new board orientation this summer. So all your branches will be changing leadership in July. And this is an opportunity maybe to set the table for how do we do things a little bit differently than we have in the past, and what can we do to create a better environment for our members and to attract more leaders. I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. When you sign off tonight, you'll see a short survey. So I'm hoping that you'll all participate. It's only 8 questions, take you about 2 minutes, but it helps us to understand what you learned from these sessions, what you'd like to see in the future, and how you react to what we've been talking about. And I encourage you to tell other people in your branch about these sessions, and go to the recordings when they can. It really is for every leader in the branch, and maybe the whole board and the whole branch, to understand that this has to be a culture shift. We can't survive if we just rely on who we are today. We have to be a different group, and we have to recruit a different demographic. And we can be very, very vibrant going forward if we just go to our brave space instead of our safe space. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I hope you will take the survey when you sign off this evening. Our
And
next
the third
session,
meeting, the third session.
third
Thank you.
session is Tuesday, May 14th, 7 p.m. Be Berry Part 3. And if, based on what you tell us in your survey, we'll tailor it a little bit to whomever, whatever your recommendations are. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can always send them to us at the board, and we will, at branch development, and we will take those into consideration and look for what we want to do. We're also looking for next year. What are we going to do starting in September, and how can we best serve the leaders and the members of our branches next year? So thank you again, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.